Welcome to the Vets Connection podcast with your host, Scott McLean.
Welcome to the podcast. I'm Scott McLean. My guest today is Eric Peterson. Eric is the founder and CEO of Project Headspace and Timing, located in Manteno, Illinois. See, I got that right, Eric?
Perfect.
There you go. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing very well, Scott. Thank you so much for having me on, man.
Yeah, my
really
pleasure,
cool.
man. My pleasure. It's good to finally talk to you.
Yes.
We were introduced through a mutual friend, Scotty Deathridge.
Yep.
Right? I was stationed with him in the Philippines, and when I first started this podcast, he jumped right on it with you. He's like, you got to talk to my buddy. And so I literally have you on my list, and interviews start flowing in. And so you're always on the list. So I never got to it, but then you sent me a text last week. You're like, yo, let's do this.
Yeah. Shout out to
Great,
Scott for
man.
that. Amazing guy. Really appreciate Scott connecting us, man. So thank you again
he's
to
a
him
good
and to
dude.
you. Yeah.
He's a good dude. All right, so tell us a little about yourself, where you grew up, when you went in the military, when you got out.
Yeah, so born and raised in Illinois. I joined the military between my junior and senior year of high school. I was getting in a little bit of trouble. I needed to redirect that energy, you know what I mean? So I went to Fort Benning, home of the infantry, between my junior and senior year. Finished up after my senior year. Everybody else was getting ready to go to college. I was getting ready to go back to Fort Benning for AIT, Advanced Individual Training, where I got my skills to become an infantryman. Shortly after that, my first tour was with the Illinois Army National Guard. So I did one tour, combat tour in Afghanistan, in Eastern Afghanistan. Came home, became a paramedic in the civilian world. I wanted to do something different. Eventually, my plan was to become a firefighter. And so I became a paramedic, started working as a paramedic, but I realized I was having some issues just being in the civilian world. Like I just didn't feel like I belonged. The job itself, as far as what the pay was if you know any first responders out there, they definitely don't make what they should be making, I think. And so then I got linked up with the State Department and I became a private military contractor. So I worked for a company called Triple Canopy. They took over for a company called Blackwater that most people are familiar with. And so I worked for Triple Canopy in Baghdad, did 2 rotations in Iraq as a medic on PSD teams, so security teams essentially. And then I hopped over to the Department of Defense and I did another 3 rotations in Afghanistan with a company called Global, doing the same thing. So all in all, 6 rotations between Iraq and Afghanistan. And this entire time, my wife, who'd been with me this entire time since my first deployment, she was asking me to come home, and she wanted to start a family. I wanted to start a family, but I couldn't stop going over. Like I wanted to keep going overseas. My uncle, Vietnam veteran, combat, was an officer in Vietnam, stops me at Christmas. I was like 3 deployments in, and he's like, hey man, you need to come home. You need to stop doing this. And I was like, out of everybody, you're the one that should understand why I'm doing this. I didn't understand what he was trying to tell me, man, but in time I started to get it. He knew that I was leaving more and more of me over there and less of me back here. So I sort of obliged my wife. I got a job doing executive protection. So I came home, but I was in New York. I still wasn't home. So my wife is like, what are you doing? Come home. I quit that job, became a private investigator. Did that for 3 years. I was traveling all over the country, still not home. And my wife was at the point where she couldn't do it anymore. I was about to lose everything that I had with her. And then on February 22nd of 2017, a man that I was a medic to, his name was John Kemper. I was his medic in Baghdad with the State Department. He made a post on Facebook. It was one of those posts you've seen before. It was like, PTSD got your 6. If you're struggling, reach out for help. Nobody deserves to suffer in silence. It's one of those types of things. The next day, February 23rd, he killed himself. And I was in Detroit when I got that message. I found out the worst way possible through a GoFundMe. I saw his picture. I'm like, yo, what's Kemper doing on a GoFundMe? Is he sick? I read into it. I find out that he killed himself. He was literally, I know everybody says this, he was the most positive dude that I'd ever known. So the fact that he could do that put me in an even worse spot. I already told you I wasn't in a great spot already, but the fact that he could do that made me question everything. And I remember I found out that he died. I was going to go to the gym to get my stress out. My turn comes up. I just kept driving straight, missed my turn. I'm white knuckling the steering wheel. Tears are running down my face. I have no idea what's going on. Like, I was just blown away. And I connected with some of my old teammates. We're all trying to talk to each other, figure out what happened. And in that process, I got recommended referred a book, I guess. It's called Tribe by Sebastian Junger. Phenomenal book, all about the issues that veterans have transitioning to the civilian world. And so I read that book. The book gave me an idea to do a town hall where we could have veterans share their emotional perspectives of war with the public, come home to my town in Mantino. I give them that idea. They're like, absolutely, whatever you need, let's do it. We do it. It goes amazing. And I knew I was onto something. And that's when something clicked. And I was like, hey, I got to keep going with this. I got to take this feeling and I got to keep this going because this is helping me and it's helping others too. So that's kind of the elevator pitch on how I got started with everything.
Yeah. That's a rough way to get started.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely is. Yeah.
So what led you to start the nonprofit? And the name of the name of the nonprofit, it's very unique. So I want to ask you that. How'd you come up with that name first before we get into the...
So thank you. I love answering this question because, again, first tour, infantry. So on my deployment, I was a driver a lot. Sometimes I was a gunner in a dismount. Most of the time I was a driver.
How old were you?
21. Ripe old age, 21 years old. Yeah. And in the infantry, the end-all be-all weapon, the Browning 50 cal machine gun, right? The Ma Deuce. That is the mecca of infantry grunt weaponry, right? Now, what a lot of people don't understand, as big and powerful of a weapon as the 50 cal is, it required this little piece to make sure that it was operational before you rolled out the wire. It's called a headspace and timing gauge. 2 pieces of metal connected by a chain, and you would take that gauge and you would make sure that your weapon was functioning. Otherwise, the round could explode in the chamber. It might not fire at all. And so when I was thinking of a name for my nonprofit, I wanted to call it something that a grunt would hear and he would immediately know, these guys know what's up. Like, these guys, they're speaking my language. And to this day, whenever I get an opportunity to speak, nothing fills me with joy quite as much as like when there's like an older Vietnam or a Korean War veteran in the back and they hear the name of the nonprofit and they just look up and they go, nice. And I'm like, thank you. That's why I called it that. You know what I mean? So that's where the name came from.
I love that. I was a dog handler. I didn't know anything about 50 cals.
Oh man, but you had an awesome job.
Shock. I had the land shock at the end of the 6-foot leash. Yeah,
oh,
that was my Project Headspace and Timing. So what led you to starting the nonprofit?
So after I did that town hall, I still didn't necessarily want to start a nonprofit. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew that I felt good being around other veterans. I knew that I felt good having that sense of worth and feeling like I was doing something productive. So what I started doing was I have a veterans home. There's the Illinois Veterans Home in Mantino, which is in my town. And I started volunteering there. And I use the term volunteering loosely because I would show up with beer and just hang out. And they didn't tell me I couldn't do that. So I just kept doing it every weekend. Like, I would come over. I would always ask the veteran, can you have a beer? And they would be like, yep. And I'd be like, good enough for me, man. And we would just hang out, listen to the ball games, share stories. And it felt really good. But then it got to the point where I was doing events for them and I was spending my own money. And my wife was like, listen, like, we had my first daughter was on the way and she was just like, we need to save money. You can't be spending all your money for this.
They are not part of our budget.
Nah. And so I realized at that point, with the direction that a lot of my energy was heading towards, it made sense to start a nonprofit organization because others were already getting involved in what we were doing. So I had a conversation with my best friend because, again, I didn't know if this was something I wanted to do. And he reaffirmed my confidence because he knew my passion for everything because he'd been my best friend since like 5th grade. And then from there, we started the nonprofit.
Yeah. Yeah. And as I told you before the show, I'm starting mine and I'm one step away.
Yep.
And it is you have to have a passion for this.
Yes,
To do this,
100%.
it's a huge commitment.
Especially if you're working with veterans. If you're working with veterans, you have to have a passion for it. You know what I mean? Otherwise, you're going to get burned out.
Did you go through that little second guess yourself? Like, am I going to be able to pull this one off? Like
every day.
What if no one comes to my party? Like what?
Yeah.
You
always have that though, right? I think, in my opinion, if you have a healthy mindset, you're always going to be running those what if scenarios to a degree. Like you can't do it to death, but like you got to keep yourself in check, right? So you're like, okay, well, what happens if this doesn't work out? But to be able to overcome that gives you a confidence, I think, not an arrogance, but like a confidence that other people can understand and pick up. And it helps you do what you're going to continue to do because you know that you can overcome those fears. And that's important.
Absolutely, man. So what does Project Headspace and Timing offer for the veterans?
Yeah, so Project Headspace and Timing has like 4 main pillars that everything else kind of falls under, right? So the first one I'll talk about is our veteran advocacy. So our veteran advocacy, or we call it Spartan Shield, is our peer support program for veterans. So we have in Kankakee County 3 peer support groups every single week for veterans. On Monday nights, Wednesday nights, we have a non-denominational 12-step group, and then Fridays at noon that I just left before I came to record this episode. We also have a spousal support group that meets once a month, and then we have one-on-one peer support. So our one-on-one peer support program works with hospitals and police departments. So if they get a veteran that identifies as a veteran and is in any sort of crisis, they'll call our hotline and we'll provide a veteran that's been trained in mental health and first aid, not to provide like any service, but just to let them know that they're not alone, to be there to talk to them, to let them know it's okay. Like, hey, I get it. I understand. I've been where you've been. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. And those veteran advocates that we send out are trained in many of the resources that are available so we can help connect them to whatever it is that they need. So that all falls under our advocacy program, right? Our second pillar is our outreach. So from an outreach perspective, we have 2 main groups. We have Troops on Trails, where we take veterans and we go hiking, biking, kayaking, fishing, archery, golfing, whatever we can do to get veterans together to do something productive and constructive, preferably outside, because I just feel better outside. I love being outside, right? We also started Veiled Valor under our outreach group. So Veiled Valor is our all-female veteran outreach initiative. A couple of years into the nonprofit, I had female veterans starting to come to our organization, thankfully, because they felt safe. And then they started to tell me about their experiences. And unfortunately,
different experiences. Absolutely, man.
Individual experience may vary, right? I was in the infantry. There were no female veterans. Like there was none in my platoon. There were female veterans on our FOB, on our base, which I understood, treated with respect, no issues there. But until a retired Marine gunny came to my organization and told me about her experience in the service, I had no idea what they'd been through. And some of them had been through. And what hurts is just like, that wasn't my experience. When I think about my time in service, I think about my brothers. I think about the unconditional love and support that I had from people that would literally fight, kill, and die for me. You know what I mean? The fact that that's not what you had, that hurts me on a different level because you didn't get to have that. And you took the same oath I did. So we created Veiled Valor, all female veteran outreach group, so they can have their safe space and do whatever they want. I made the mistake of like giving them advice one time, never again. In the very beginning, I was like, hey,
I learned that.
I was like, maybe we go do a yoga thing and we'll have childcare on the premises and blah, blah, blah. And they were like, listen, can we just go to a rage room? And I said, you know what? I'm going to shut up and you guys do whatever you want. I'm just going to hang out in the back. Like, I'm sorry. So they're amazing. They get out every month to do things with female veterans. So that's our outreach group. And then we have our homelessness, so veteran homelessness. So when I first started this, really what I wanted to tackle first was homelessness, because as a private investigator, I traveled all around the country. Everywhere I'd go, I'd see homeless veterans. I would talk to them about their time in service, right? And it didn't make sense to me. It just didn't make sense to me. People talk about offensive language all the time. To me, when you talk about a starving child, a homeless veteran, or nuclear war, those words should be way more offensive than most other swear words, right? And so I wanted to do something for the homeless veteran community. I started working on building a transitional tiny home lodging facility. I visited a few in the country, started taking note of which ones I thought were the most effective. We started looking at land, had blueprints developed, and then COVID happened. And when COVID happened, we started getting way more crisis calls. And we realized that, okay, we got to dedicate more energy to figuring out the mental health supportive side of things before we do the housing. There's other housing projects which are great. We'll support those, but we had to kind of pull back on that so we could work on these other things because there's only so many hours in the day. Yes, exactly. Yeah. We had to pivot like every other company and organization in COVID, right? So we're still very much focused on the veteran homelessness side. We work with a lot of other organizations to get veterans placed if we get homeless veterans in our area. But our long-term goal is a transitional tiny home lodging facility. And then our fourth and final pillar is veteran self-improvement. So through all those other programs, and this fourth pillar is our newest one, because through all those other programs, I've been thankful enough to have gotten veterans sent to treatment programs, both with the VA and private, all over the country. I've worked with veterans in 6 other states outside of my own, and it's been amazing to give veterans the tools that they need to get over what they're dealing with when it comes to mental health issues, substance use issues, and more. But I found that we weren't doing enough on the self-improvement side, because I feel like when you take everything away from a veteran when they come home and they don't have that team to serve, they don't have that purpose, they don't have that mission, that's when I've seen vets start to spin out, myself included. So with our self-improvement program, we are partnering with a local financial education firm, Piggish Financial, who is partnering with Dave Ramsey and his Smart Dollar program. And we're offering the Smart Dollar program, which is an amazing, amazing piece of financial education software to our veterans so they can work on the financial side of things to get themselves out of whatever financial hole they may be in. We have deals with local gyms so we can get veterans back into the gym again. We have a deal with a local farm that has horses, as you may know, which I think you do.
Equine assisted services
amazing benefits of
my life, man. Amazing. Absolutely. Yeah.
So amazing. Who would have guessed, right? And so that's kind of on our self-improvement side. So those are the 4 main pillars of what everything we do as an organization, I think, falls under.
Is there a time frame for the Veteran Village, or is it just always a project in motion?
It's always a project in motion. We've looked at a lot of different properties and then run into miscellaneous issues with like zoning, code, whatever the case may be. Right now, we are in early stage talks with a prospective property that's owned by a church that has a lot of property, and they would like to see us do something with that. So it's possible, but it's so early on. Like we have all the supportive services lined up. Once the walls are up and the vets are there, I feel very comfortable as far as what we will have available to help them transition back into the civilian world. But as far as like the development is concerned, we don't have a date at this time, no.
Yeah, that's an admirable but a huge undertaking. I would think. Yeah. There are.
You have to be a little crazy.
That was a true evocation of emotion that I just got out of you. Like you have no idea response.
It's exhausting. It's a worthy cause. It's a worthy cause. Absolutely, I'm very thankful to get to do it every day, but good Lord, it's exhausting for sure.
Yeah. God bless you, my friend. God bless you. Before we get into the podcast, is there anything else you want to touch on with the nonprofit?
No, I mean, the one beautiful thing about all this, and that I hope is the biggest message, is that like it would take me hours, if not days, to really go through how many people in my community, how many businesses, how many nonprofits, how many people came together to give my organization the support to become what it is today, which is obviously we have plenty of room for growth and a long road ahead of us, but we have been very successful because of how our community has supported us. Many of these people are not veterans. And that's the message that I hope veterans understand. It's like your support is out there. You might not realize it because you don't see them. But if you can have the courage to reach out and ask, you have no idea how many hands will be reaching down to get you. You know what I mean? And it's just something I'm so thankful to see. And that's what re-energizes me every day when I deal with the crisis calls. I'm there with some veterans at their worst moments, and it is mentally draining. The fact that I know that I have so many people that support my organization, that gives me the confidence to continue on doing what I'm doing, and I'm forever grateful for that.
And of course, I did my homework, and it looks like you have a very solid board of directors and a really good amount of committee members that are there to help you guys out. I mean, because you were telling me about all these things that you do, and you're telling us, and that all of a sudden clicked. I'm like, I guarantee every single one of them is doing something.
So many passionate people, and veterans and civilians alike. It's so important. You need that. And the civilians that are involved, they always come to me and they're like, I never served, and they say that in a negative way. And I'm like, if you didn't serve, you're the reason why somebody else did. We're all a part of the same thing here. We're all pieces to this puzzle. And if every one of these people didn't have the passion that they did, I would not be here for sure. So very thankful for that too. So like the spouses, everything that spouses go through and families go through. And there's so many organizations that are there for the veterans, but not many that are there for the spouses and their kids. They need support too. Like it's everybody. We are all pieces to the same puzzle, and we have to make sure that we're always cognizant of that. It's so important.
Yeah, well, you're doing some important stuff out there. I can tell you that. Let me ask you this. Is this just... And I only ask because there are very few that do. Is this just for the local area? Like do you have contact with veterans from other states that come in, or is there any kind of connection like that?
Oh, great question. So a majority of our programs are offered within Kankakee County and surrounding counties.
Which is known,
We work with the Illinois Department of Veteran Affairs. So there are some plans to potentially branch some of our stuff out throughout the state of Illinois, but quality over quantity type of guy. So we have to make sure we take our time, because we're talking about mental health and veterans, right? So we got to make sure we got all of our stuff together here. But in the process, as I mentioned earlier, I did 6 deployments with the military, State Department, DOD. Thankfully for that, I have brothers and sisters all over this country, and a lot of them ask me, can we start something here? Can we do something there? And again, I tell them it's not time yet. We will maybe eventually. And that's why we worked with veterans in 6 other states, because as I think you mentioned before we started recording, it's a close-knit community. It's a small community of veterans. You know what I mean? And so when somebody finds out, I remember him, I know he does something to help veterans with mental health. I got a buddy that's struggling. Hey, Eric, can you help me out with this guy? I'm not going to say no. I'm going to try to find you a resource in your area that I can direct you to, because I think that's more productive for you. But I'm going to do whatever I can to get you the help you need, But at this time, we're keeping it as local as possible for sure.
So this is a good transition, because we're both podcasters. We're both passionate about podcasting. I know this.
Yes.
Eric went above and beyond before the podcast to make sure you had the proper microphone to do this podcast.
Had to do it.
That's a true podcaster.
And I appreciate that you appreciated that.
Oh, buddy, I was a happy man when I heard you were using your microphone. I was a happy man.
Yeah, man. So the podcast that I do, it's called the I'm Fine podcast, and that stands for Freaked Out, Insecure, Neurotic, and Emotional. That is a podcast between myself and another veteran. He's a Marine, but I don't hold it against him. He's blind. He became blind after service.
The guy I watched on the episode about insomnia, that
he's wearing the glasses. Yeah, Brad. Yeah, he's blind.
I had no idea. Wow.
He came to my organization a few years ago, and he was struggling because there was a surgery that went wrong and left him blind overnight. So he had a really hard time talking about it. He didn't understand what his platform was to talk about it. And he was just struggling. He was really struggling. And so him and I started talking, and he said he wanted to do a podcast. And I was like, Okay. And that started our podcast, because I always wanted to do one, because I love talking about all of the different facets of mental health, because I find them interesting, and I find that the veteran population is the most diverse group of people, arguably, under one label. So when you're talking about mental health and you look at the veteran community, in my opinion, that gives you a pretty good read on what the rest of the population may also be inevitably dealing with one day, right? And so we started the I'm Fine podcast 2 years ago. Actually, in 3 days will be 2 years from now, and that's where we get to talk about everything mental health related. And it's been a trip. And how you mentioned earlier about the importance of veterans being able to just kind of share their stories and talk. Yeah, point blank. Like, that's exactly what this was. That's why ours started. So the importance is just, it's immeasurable. It's huge.
And part of the elevator speech that I give people about my nonprofit, it's every time a veteran tells a story, or tells a story, even about a moment in time when they were in, a little weight gets lifted off them. You know, PTSD, and the question I have is, the weight never goes away with PTSD, as you know, but would you rather carry 500 pounds or 50 pounds?
You just feel like you're sharing the burden.
Yeah,
and that's everything.
So the less weight, you're always going to have a little weight on you, because PTSD is not that, like, take some Excedrin and you're done.
Right.
You know, but the more weight that you lift, and there's the whole science behind storytelling and what it does for people. You know?
Well, how much do you, I mean, I don't know how you feel about this, but I wish so badly. My grandfather passed away years ago. He was a World War II veteran, flew unarmed aircraft behind enemy lines to drop off supplies. My uncle's a Vietnam vet who was in significant combat. I would go out to the veterans home and talk to these guys who had stories that would rival anything you see in the movies, like, not even a question. And I wish nothing more than, like, that we would have gotten a chance to record an episode or a story of some of these veterans and their incredible stories. So I could not agree more with what you're saying, man.
I just interviewed a gentleman last month who served during World War II, the Korean War, and Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Like, he just, I mean, that's
small
such a
handful
very,
of those guys.
very small percentage.
Yep.
It's all timing. It's all timing, and then longevity staying in. And I just got his whole life story. I got a few stories from the military, but his life story, the whole, like, it was amazing. It's a piece of history. These guys, they're walking history.
Oh my God, the things that they have seen and done. Like, there will never be somebody that did those, that experienced all of those things ever again.
Exactly.
You know, like you said, they're walking history.
So where can listeners find the I'm Fine podcast?
So the I'm Fine podcast, it has a YouTube channel, the I'm Fine podcast, and then you can also find it wherever you listen to podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, all that stuff. It's on all of them. And then there is also a Facebook page, I'm Fine podcast. And if you go to my website, Project Headspace and Timing.org, under the media tab, there's a link to our podcast there as well.
There you go. And it's I'm, then F.I.N.E. Just so dot. So people know that's what you're looking for.
Correct. Thank you. Yes.
So again, tell us the website for your nonprofit.
Yes, the website, www.projectheadspaceandtiming.org, all spelled out.
All right. And fundraisers. What do you do for fundraisers? I always say money. Do you have a donate button on your?
Yes.
So
absolutely.
Give them money. If you like what Eric was talking about and you think this is something that you could get into, give him money. Give the foundation money.
Thank you. Yes, there is a donate button right when you go to our page. We also have merchandise that we sell on there. We do, from a fundraising perspective, most of them are obviously local to our county and surrounding counties.
They could be listening. So,
we do one large one every year called Heroes, Hogs, and Hot Rods, which is just a family-friendly festival with a mental health and veteran resource tent and all sorts of other cool stuff just to go out with the family and have a really fun day. That's our biggest one. And then other than that, yes, please make sure you check out our website. And that's where you can find any other information on how to donate.
Especially that donate button.
Yeah.
Give him money. They're doing great work.
Thank
Doing
you,
great
man. I
work.
appreciate that.
All right. Well, I'm going to do this outro and then hang in there and we'll talk when I'm off.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, we built another bridge today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I certainly did. If you like it, share it, subscribe to it, give it as many stars as you think it deserves. Tell a friend, repost it. Just do all the right things, okay? And please listen to the end of the podcast. I have a public service announcement that I put at the end of the outro that's very important, and it's informative, and it's only like 32 seconds long. So,
The Vets Connection podcast is produced by Scott McLean at the KOFB studio in Boca Raton, Florida. If you would like to connect with us, visit our website at www.vetsconnectpodcast.com. If you have an idea for an episode or would like to be a guest on the podcast, you can email us at vetsconnectionpodcast@gmail.com. If you or someone you know is in crisis and needs immediate help, call 911 Emergency Services or go to the nearest emergency room. Or call or text 988 to connect with the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Also, if you are in need of essential community services, call 211. 211 is a free and confidential service that helps people find resources for food, housing, employment, healthcare, mental health and substance abuse resources, legal assistance, counseling, youth programs, household items, and much more.